Here's a question we get all the time. What's the best car for a new teenage driver? Well, the teen driver wants something that's sporty and stylish and with caution allows her to bring along a friend or two. Parents, though, they want something that's full of safety, that's reliable, and versatile for all those college dorm move-in and move-outs. Both of us, all of us, want something that's affordable. We just spent a week test driving the Chevy Trax, and this is an SUV that hits all the notes. Chevrolet redesigned the Trax for the 2023 model year, giving it a sleeker design. It's actually 11 inches longer and has 3 more inches of legroom in the rear seat. It also has the sleek new front end, so notice that shiny black front grille. It has these sleek daytime running lights and headlights that are right there. It has a smaller grille on the front, and it might actually remind you on the front end of some other sports cars built by Chevrolet. It kind of almost has a Camaro look to it, but in an SUV. That's kind of what we thought about the Trailblazer too, and you definitely see the DNA between those cars. Notice the roof line that's still tall, but it's sleek. It slopes towards the back, and then tail lights that almost have motion to them on their own. You'll see on the rear end, Chevrolet skipped some expensive things like the exhaust tips, but did give us this cute little Trax badge. It's very demure there in the rear end. The Chevy bow tie that is black instead of gold. Sometimes they're gold. This is the RS trim, so it has all the blacked out details. And then it has the windshield wiper there squarely placed at the bottom of the rear windshield. Notice these wheels. They are fancy. I love the look of these wheels. In fact, looking at the wheels and the overall shape and scale of the Chevy Trax, it's a pretty sharp car. I won't, as they say in the news business, bury the lead here. The price on this car is equipped as the one we're looking at today, $26,500. That's an incredible value, especially when you consider the average new car is almost $49,000. That is a real deal. So how did Chevrolet do that? Well, they dialed back on some things that maybe are less important to you, especially if you're looking for a car for a teen driver, and more important to you if you are that teen driving that car or the parent of the teen who wants to know that the teen is well taken care of, well equipped, and has everything that she needs behind the wheel. So it starts with the engine. This carries a 3-cylinder turbocharged engine that makes about 137 horsepower. Not a lot of power, just enough to get you where you need to go. From there, they skipped a lot of the fluffy details that maybe are things that a teen doesn't need. The front seats are manual front seats. They're not power. The lift gate is manual. It's not power. But there are things that you will appreciate. Wireless Apple CarPlay. There is a wireless phone charger in this car. And it has this. Inside the manual lift gate, so you push the button and you pull it up, and it's on hydraulics. It is not electric. Under the cargo floor, there is a spare tire. Now, this is a temporary spare intended only for driving short distances when you get a flat tire. But as a parent, you are going to be very excited that the Chevy Trax comes with a spare tire. And what else do you get in the cargo area? Well, not a ton. There is a cargo cover. This comes off. There's a nice little space there. There's a little storage if you really need it underneath the floor. Don't take that spare tire out. And we have seats, rear seats, that actually fold flat. So I'm going to just pull this cargo cover off and show you what the dorm move-in and move-out space looks like, because I know that's what you're thinking. That's what I'd be thinking too. So these seats do fold flat, relatively easy. We have a nice low floor there. It's a nice flat floor in the rear because there is not the contraption for all-wheel drive, so we don't need that tunnel for the equipment. And these seats fold nice and flat, and that you have a lot of space back here. So I'm going to just pull this little cargo cover out and show you what this looks like. So you have a lot of space. Can you fit all the things you need for a dorm room in there? Probably most of it. And if there's anything that you need to fit in this car that's not going to fit in the rear, you can fit it on the roof because it has roof rails. You'll have to buy the crossbars, but you do have roof rails. which is a nice detail. And if you don't want the cargo cover, you can leave it in your garage or in the back of a closet somewhere. Like I said, there's really not a lot of power in here. The seats are manual and the lift gate is manual, but it does close with a really nice thud, sounding very solid. The interior of the Chevy Trax is really quite lovely. It's nicer than any starter level car I ever had. It starts with this leatherette. We're in the RS edition, so it has the RS logo embossed here on the headrest. It has these red stripes. It has red stitching. And you might note if you've looked at the Buick Envista or the Encore GX, they have the same screen. And so this clearly is the entry-level screen setup, but it is quite nice. Let's start it up and see what it sounds like. So I like that. It has a smart key, so you can enter and start without actually plugging a key into the ignition. That's a nice detail. Our version has a wireless phone charging pad right there, so you just drop your phone in and it will start to charge wirelessly. Then we also have cup holders here. Our gear selector is right here. And then we have our parking brake. I also have auto stop start here. So if that's getting on my nerves, I can just turn that off. I also have lane keep assist right there, which will tell me if I'm veering out of my lane. There's a little cubby here, which is a great place to put your key if you don't leave it in your bag. And then there is a nice deep cargo space here for, a little armrest cargo space for small things. And there's a glove box right there. These are hard plastic surfaces. I mean, Chevrolet had to save some money somewhere, and they did a nice job picking the right places. Though some of these surfaces are textured. This is a gloss black here, and surrounding. The interior has some really beautiful details. I love these vents. This is the RS, so it's got this red accent, and these vents actually, the fluting around the vents actually mimic the stitching that we have on the inside of the steering wheel and that we also find on the door panels and on our seats, and then of course the RS logo that is embroidered in the headrests. So a lot of elegant details. It's amazing what they've been able to do with some of these inexpensive materials to make this car feel just a little more expensive than it is. So it looks really lovely. It has a very nice, elegant look to it. There is a sunroof here. This was part of an option package. And there's a button here so you can just open it or close it, or you can fully open it or close it. So it's a half sunroof. It's not huge, but it is nice to have, especially if you live someplace where you just need a little bit of extra sunshine on those dark and gloomy days. Behind the wheel, though, is where it's really special. So we have this nice leather-wrapped steering wheel. We've got controls on either side and a really large, clear, easy-to-see driver information screen. I feel like Chevrolet did a really nice job designing the interior of the 2024 Chevy Trax. So you'll notice over here are your headlight controls, super tiny little dial. They used to be a big thing. They don't need to be so much anymore. This is our turn signal here. We have our windshield wipers here. And then over here we have the cruise control settings, and we have our radio settings. So there's my music and there's my phone, but this button here doesn't actually do anything. And so it took me a while to find out, where is the volume control in this car? Well, if you're wondering, it's right here. So there is a button here, and that's what you're going to use to turn up or down the radio. On the other side of the steering wheel, there's a button here, and this is what you're going to use to change the radio station. So once you've set your sequence or you want to scroll, you can just use these buttons to go back and forth. So you'll see here, the favorites are set here. So when I push that button on the back of the steering wheel, it goes through the presets that somebody has set up for this car. Not my presets, not my car, but nice to know that you can do that. I really love those buttons. And then there's a volume control button dial right here. And that's where you can turn the entire system, the volume on or off. The screens in the Chevy Trax are pretty impressive. This is our driver information screen right here. It's pretty basic. And if you look at the steering wheel controls, clearly you can set your music choice, or you can connect to a phone. I don't have a phone connected, so it doesn't show that. There is a voice activation control there, and you can hang up the phone there. Over here is our adaptive cruise settings. What I don't see is like my trip information or my fuel economy. That's what I'm always looking for first. And there is actually a little trick to it. This little dial here, you just hold that down, and then it gives you these selections. So I can actually set a different gauge. So if I want a little bit of a different look, I can set that as my gauge. But I can also go to my vehicle information here, and this shows me my fuel economy. So this has been my average. Somebody's been driving this with a lead foot. That is not me. And then I can also look at the multimedia system and get a look at what's playing there. If I really need to have that, if I have my maps over on the other screen, I might want to have that. And then I can go back to the gauge setting that I'd like to have. I like this one. I'm going to show you, when I'm driving, I'm going to show you what this is. This is one of the things I really love the most in this car. Such a cool feature. Over here, we have this really large driver multimedia system, about a 12-inch screen. There's actually a volume dial up here, and then it's a touch screen. So there's our music. I can connect a phone. There's my traction control. I can turn that on or off. Here are my vehicle settings. And actually, I can scroll through these screens here, and then I can reset my trip odometer if I'd like to. There's my average MPG. That's what I've been averaging on my drive. And I can set my fuel economy. I can change distance. So I can look at how it's going to calculate my fuel economy, 50 miles, 400 miles, 25 miles. And then I can also go to my gauges, and I can look and see how my different gauges are doing. Let's see. And there's my trip odometer, so I can get that really quickly. I like that they have all that right there. And then here's my home screen. And if I want to set up my settings, this is where I'm going to do that. And I'm going to show you the thing that I love the most as a parent, and that's this, the teen driver settings. So this is actually connected to the key. So your key, you can connect it to the key and set up by key the teen driver information. This is all going to be in the owner's manual and also in your Chevy phone app. Here is our climate control. We do have heated seats in this car, and that's a nice detail. I really like the heated seats. Now, let's go take a look at the rear seat and see, is that where they made all the compromises? Well, to answer my own question, yes and no. So the one thing I will say is, look how much legroom I have. This back seat is actually quite sizable. I had my child passenger car seats installed. This one, rear-facing one, did not really impede legroom for the front seat passenger. And then, of course, the front-facing seat fit just fine. I found them okay to install, not as easy as maybe in a larger SUV with wider opening doors, but it honestly wasn't bad. Now, what I will say is where you're going to have compromise, especially if you're going to put kids in car seats back here, is air vents. There are no air vents back here. Now, the air vents on the front side, I can feel them actually right now. I can feel one pointing up, the air goes up and then hits the roof and comes down. I can feel that. I can feel the side air vents from the front, but on a really hot day, that's going to be a challenge for backseat passengers. So this is really a backseat for drivers who are only going to use it occasionally, even though it is quite roomy, and it might actually be a really comfortable rear seat for a dog, or if you're hauling a lot of things and you just need that extra space. But it is a luxury to have this much legroom in an SUV this size. So what do rear passengers get besides a lot of legroom? Well, there are two USB ports here. There's a USB-C and a standard USB. There's a little cubby here where you can put a phone or something. No cup holders, but we do have bottle pockets here on the door. So the cup holders normally would go here. And if you do have child passenger car seats, if you have need for that, the anchors are right in here. They're actually quite neatly covered by these seats, and there are two sets of anchors here. And then these seats do fold down very easily. I'll put down this side. So they do fold down quite easily. They don't recline, so that's as far back as they go. So again, rear seat passengers who want to take a nap are going to have to get comfortable in these seats because they don't recline. How is the headroom? Well, I'm 5'8" and I've got plenty of headroom. A 6-foot tall passenger might feel a little hemmed in here, although I'm told that there was people who designed this car who are 6 feet tall who found headroom to be completely adequate. I think that you've got more in the front than you do in the rear, although this roof line the headline is cut out a little bit to give you a little more space directly overhead. So 6 feet tall people are not going to be completely uncomfortable back here, but I think the lack of vents is something that if you're going to have people in the back seat all the time, something that you want to consider. For 25 grand though, you got to cut rope somewhere, and that's actually not a bad place to do it. So how is the Chevrolet Trax when it comes to merging onto the highway and driving at highway speed? Well, we're going to take it out onto the highway and test it out. Now, remember, this car is 137 horsepower from a 3-cylinder turbo, so that's not a ton of power, but it does have 162 pound-feet of torque. More torque, the torque number, is higher than the horsepower number, which means it should have really good acceleration. So we are here. Let's try it out. And I can hear that 6-speed automatic transmission shifting. It's not super loud. Actually, as loud as the engine is the cabin and road noise. So I can hear the wind. I can hear the wheels on the road, the tires on the road. It's not super loud, but it certainly is not luxury quiet. If your teenage driver has the music up, she or he is not going to notice the road noise. If you're trying to make a phone call, you may have to talk a little bit louder. I feel myself right now having to talk a little bit louder just to talk over the road noise. Again, a $25,000 car, $21,000 to start. So you don't really expect super quiet performance, but it's nice that the engine noise is not really loud. Even getting up to speed, that transmission is doing a pretty good job. It's not as loud as some CVT transmissions, and getting up to speed is no problem. The torque gets you there and the horsepower keeps you there, and that's a pretty comforting detail in a car at this price with the smaller 3-cylinder engine. How does it handle? Well, that's another detail that is great for a starter driver. I feel confident on the road. I do feel in control. It is not a luxury ride, so you do feel a few more of the bumps. You do have a little play in the steering wheel, not a ton, but a little bit. And it feels capable. It's easy to park. It's easy to drive. But it's not a luxury experience. It's just what you expect, maybe even a little bit more than you might expect from an entry-level SUV with a price tag that starts at $21,000. SUV buyers who really need all-wheel drive, well, the Chevy Trax is going to disappoint a little bit. It's only available in front-wheel drive. But if you live in a wintry climate, you can equip it with winter tires and you'll be just as capable as you need to be. The real magic here is that everyone who wants an SUV should have one, and everyone who wants an attractive car should have one. The Chevy Trax, with all of the passenger space, all of the cargo space, and a really great edit of features that are even somewhat pampering at under $25,000, well, that sounds like a perfect tune to me.